I talk a lot about the Canadian province of Ontario and its capital city Toronto on this channel. But Ontario is not just Toronto, and exciting transit expansions and plans are happening all over the province. So today I want to talk about one of those expansions and an exciting proposed project that is exactly the type of thing we need more of in Eastern Canada, to tie our new and upgraded rail services and communities together. It doesn't sound particularly sexy, but the Cambridge to Guelph line would do exactly that, and would help to create a rational transit backbone for the entire Waterloo-Guelph urban region. So let's talk about what it is, its potential, and how with a couple of tweaks it could be a game-changing transit service. Welcome to RM Transit, a YouTube channel about transit plans in regions small and large. Consider subscribing to the channel so you never miss a video. Guelph is a community of around 150,000 people located 70 kilometers west of Toronto, and it also plays host to its eponymous university, the University of Guelph. Just about 20 kilometers southwest of Guelph is Waterloo Region, which consists of Waterloo, Kitchener, and Cambridge, has nearly 700,000 residents, and is quite the tech powerhouse, with tech companies like Google calling the region home, and its famous University of Waterloo, which has very good math, computer science, and engineering programs. It really is like Canada's own Silicon Valley in farm country. Now, as you might already know, Waterloo already has the ION tram service, which has been running along a combination of streets as well as rail alignments between Waterloo, its university, and Kitchener since 2019. And the transit system it's part of, Grand River Transit, is absolutely booming, with ridership setting records quite regularly. But, unfortunately, Waterloo Region is not all that well connected to Guelph, despite there being obviously quite a bit of demand and lots of potential for rail connections. At the moment, GO train services mostly operate in the peak commute direction during rush hour periods, with a couple of other journeys throughout the day so that people can, say, go to Waterloo in the morning and return to Toronto in the evening. Now, GO service is meant to increase in the next couple of years, ideally eventually getting to half-hourly or even better service. But that's challenging because the core portion of the Kitchener line between Guelph and Toronto is owned by Canadian National Railway, a freight operator that isn't really very friendly to passenger service. You see, while the core of the Kitchener line is not in public ownership, the rail lines between Guelph, Cambridge, and Kitchener are either in public ownership or are very lightly used. So there's no need for regional connections here to wait for solutions to bigger problems down the line, as it were. And that's where the Guelph-Cambridge line comes in. It would be a semi-frequent regional service, akin to the River Line in New Jersey, O-Train Line 2 in Ottawa, or the TexRail service in Dallas-Fort Worth. That is a service running modern European-style rolling stock a couple times per hour on an existing rail line from place to place. And we actually have a sense for what this might look like in the region thanks to a recently released initial business case, which is sort of the first step in getting this project actually built. Well, right now, as things stand, the plan is to run an hourly or half-hourly service from Guelph Central Station to Pine Bush in central Cambridge over existing lightly used freight rail lines, with some additional passing tracks and passing sidings as well as speed upgrades included in the project. Guelph Central, as its name suggests, is quite central, being a relatively short bike ride from the University of Guelph and also having a nice bus exchange right next door. And what's also nice is the station has recently got an additional platform and platform canopies that make it feel like a proper train station. Meanwhile, Pine Bush would be located in central Cambridge, surrounded by strip malls and big box stores, and quite some distance from the historic centre of the city, Galt. Pine Bush is not really an ideal station location, if its surroundings didn't already make that obvious, because it's just not near all that much. Now, its surroundings are planned to go through major redevelopment and urbanization, but that will take decades. The saving grace is that the station would be located along the ION extension route into Cambridge, and it's already served by a spiffy fleet of ION buses which run the route that the future light rail will run. Ultimately, a station here for now is fine, if only because it would be cheaper than getting to Galt right away and would help get the project moving along. But Galt should be the long-term plan, and an extension there is completely doable. It just requires rebuilding some parts of the alignment and maybe doing a grade separation or two. What's critical at this stage is that an extension is protected for. Now, the way everything is branded in the business case, this line would be a branch of GO Transit's Kitchener line, allowing service to directly connect Cambridge and downtown Toronto, which has been a bit of an obsession via various different plans over the years. And you can see this in this business case, with GO branding splashed all over the place, even though this isn't even a Metrolinx plan. But to be honest, the real benefit here is in the hourly or half-hourly multiple unit service. Sure, you could use that to commute to Guelph and then take a GO train to downtown Toronto, but you could use it for all kinds of other trips, from going to an event in the other city, to going to university, or just traveling to see friends and family. And this service could run into a new stub-end platform at Guelph Central that could enable a timed and cross-platform transfer to GO trains that would again lead you to Toronto, as well as other destinations like Brampton and Pearson Airport. Of course, in the long term, GO service to Waterloo Region should become more frequent, maybe even every half hour or 15 minutes in the longer term. And so maybe at some point it will actually make sense to run alternating direct services either to Kitchener or to Cambridge, say every hour or half hour. But in the short term, that doesn't make sense, because it would mean diluting service to Kitchener where all of the demand currently is. Suffice to say, this is why the multiple unit service is key. It would be most of the service, at least initially. But like with a future service to Guelph, this line should be protected for and likely designed for future service with GO trains, or whatever ends up replacing GO trains, ideally European-style multiple units, with a decently long platform at Pine Bush, which could be built shorter in the meantime to support the shorter trains that will be used on the line. If and when GO Transit service actually starts operating on this line on a regular bidirectional basis, then you could just adjust the schedule of the multiple unit service to supplement it and provide a higher level of service overall. So maybe trains would operate every 20 minutes or every 15 minutes, with 3 multiple unit trains an hour and 1 GO train an hour, that sort of thing. Now, a big question mark for some are the trains mentioned in the plan. What are 4-car battery multiple units? Now, what I think is that when 4 cars is mentioned, what's really being referred to are 4-segment trains, i.e. something like a Stadler Flirt, a train that we've been seeing all across North America and which is also present all across Europe already. The battery part is simple. Instead of having a diesel engine, these trains would be powered by batteries, which would charge up likely with a short overhead charge bar at Guelph Central Station and maybe also at Pine Bush. And honestly, this is a reasonable application of battery trains. If this route needed to have overhead lines along its entire length, it would be extremely expensive and extremely not going to happen. You'll notice that if you look at those lines I mentioned earlier in the video, all of them are diesel powered, and that's because diesel is cheap. But diesel is also bad for the planet, and battery trains don't need to be much more expensive. And they should work well enough on a line that's not very long, it doesn't have a ton of stations, and where there's definitely going to be enough time to charge at the end of the route because frequency isn't super high. And who knows, if the line ends up getting a ton of service down the road, or tons of GO trains end up through operating on it, maybe it'll be electrified sometime in the future anyways. In the meantime, some German branch lines and some lines in American cities are already going this route, though in the case of the American cities, they should generally just string up wires. So I think it's an okay option. What would be amazing is if the technical standards for this route and GO ultimately end up slowly aligning. Maybe someday GO could purchase some Stadler Flirts for some of its services, which are already used on S-Bahn and regional services across Europe, and which could, like these trains on the Guelph-Cambridge line, run on battery on sections of track that Metrolinx can't electrify because it doesn't own them. For example, the end of the Lakeshore West line, parts of the Kitchener line, and segments of the Milton line. That could be enabled with trains recharging on the sections of the lines that do have wires, and this would eventually allow GO to continue to have its enviable single train type fleet, where every train is the same model. But moving over time from a locomotive hauled train model to a multiple unit train model, which is more modern and higher performance. All in all, the idea is good. It's low cost and would enable a great transit service. Fast trains running every half hour or so, which would be frequent enough to start, and very practical for what is a relatively long journey. And it would also be a great way of kicking off building some more supporting regional train services that interconnect and support GO and VIA services, while also having prices that we can actually afford and technical standards that we could learn a lot from. While the line shouldn't end at Pine Bush forever, it's a useful component in an eventual service to Galt, and it would fit well with the eventual extension of Ion trains down to central Cambridge, a project which needs to learn from this project that if it doesn't get more cost effective, it will never be built. It also makes a good point. If supplemental service between Cambridge and Guelph would be operated with multiple units in addition to GO trains, why isn't this already happening on the line between Kitchener and Guelph, where Metrolinx already has the alignment, there's track capacity to spare, and the platforms and stations already exist? That's in addition to the fact that Kitchener already has a tram route. It's all just very strange, and it would be even more strange if there was frequent all-day service between Guelph and Cambridge before there was between Guelph and Kitchener. That being said, since on the Kitchener line one of the major destinations is Waterloo and its university, I think you need a slightly more complex solution here. Potentially with passenger trains running infrequently over the Waterloo Spur, or a tram train style situation that partially interlines with ION and partially interlines with GO Transit. Something which I talked about in a previous blog post. Shameless plug of my blog. The Guelph-Cambridge line is a good, if not perfect, idea. But because it's cost effective and because it would set us on the right path, we should build it, like right now. If you want to learn more about the project and help advocate for it, consider checking out MTSO, or More Transit Southern Ontario, a great technocratic advocacy group that's pushing for this project, but also pushing to make it better. And, as always, thanks for watching.